Start that now. Perfect. Recording. Yes, I do want to get into this crazy business.
Okay.
I'm very
Are you partner with all the girls and do, is that what you're thinking maybe?
Yeah, my mom is also kind of she does event planning as well. And my sister does a lot of the catering side of things that we do. And so I'm like, which one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, so we can run through your list if you want. Go ahead.
Well, first off, could I ask you to introduce yourself and say where you're working?
Sure. So I'm Carrie Feltenberg, and I'm the Director of Catering and Events at Arizona Grand Resort, and I've been here in November. It'll actually be 17 years.
That's incredible. Is it just so fun to say that?
Yeah, I always have to stop and think.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, is this your dream job? Is this like what you aspire to be, or?
No, I kind of fell into it, but I don't know what my dream job was. So I'm going to have to call that, after 35 years, this is my dream job. So yeah.
It's kind of the bloom where you were planted. You make it your dream job.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and so so you worked with Denise at the Wigwam.
Right.
And so what was your role there? And then how did you get to where you are now?
So I had, like many of us, was putting myself through college with waiting tables and that kind of thing, and was married and moved out to the west side of town. And a customer at my old job had said, "Oh, you should apply at the Wigwam." And I hadn't even heard of it. I mean, I grew up here, but I'd never heard of it. I'd never been that far west, really. And so I did, and I got on as a server, and then as a server in the restaurant, you had to be a banquet server as well. And banquet servers, that's a really good job if you just want to make good money but not have responsibility. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know. I mean, I had no idea, but that was good for me. And I was recognized, who is now my husband, by the director of banquets as having a good work ethic. And so he promoted me to captain. And that's really where the hands-on experience came. So I'm grateful for that, because to then switch over to selling and planning, I could see what, if I didn't do it right, how I could affect it negatively on the other side. So there's really a couple ways to come up through it in the hotel, and it's either as an admin or, on the operations side. It's harder to do it on the operations side because you get used to making a certain amount of money, and at some point you have to take a cut in pay to go back and start in sales. So with the help of another, he was actually our director of food and beverage, said, "Okay, I'll give you a shot at some point in catering, but you have to be a restaurant manager for me for a while." And so I was a fine dining restaurant manager for a year and a half. And I also learned then that I really don't like restaurants and really don't like restaurant management. And so luckily it was only about a year and a half, and then I moved into catering. And back in those days, weddings were the training spot. And I don't know if we've progressed that much further from that even now today, although, I certainly know better. And if I do hire, I'll rarely hire anybody as the start of their career to take weddings. Yeah, because it is one of the tougher, positions, actually, and you really have to have a certain personality. Honestly, I actually don't have a certain personality, but I can fake it. And so I actually prefer corporate. I prefer spending big corporations' money. It is harder for me to, but I should backtrack and say that then I did love it. It was as I did different things that I realized that, maybe it wasn't as much my passion. It's just, there's a lot more emotion wrapped up into it, as because you're coming up close to that. And, hopefully it's once in a lifetime. And, who has that kind of money to just drop 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 grand, and should I buy a house instead, or, all those things, but I really want my dream wedding. And so all this emotion is wrapped up into the perfection of this day for so many people. Not everybody, some people realize that, that's just the beginning and you've got your whole life ahead of you, and if somebody's salad has a bug in it, it has a bug in it, I mean, it's not going to be the end of the world, but
Yeah, I've
the,
definitely seen how planning my own wedding,
mhm,
how that would be, because I've just been thinking about, how I would work with other brides who may be like me, and I'm a complete perfectionist and I have so much attention to detail because that's just how I was raised, doing everything, you pay attention to the small things, and
mhm,
it's kind of hard when
mhm.
you have to realize that, okay, it's going to be as perfect as it can be and as you can make it, and then you just kind of have to let it go. But
Yep. And
it's
then, remember to enjoy the moment. That's my advice to you because, it's going to go by in a flash, and you're going to want to look back at all the big things that day. Don't get too mired down in all the little things that day. I think not, I mean, the first time you look in, Tyler's eyes, those kind of things, you should get mired down in that. But don't get too worried about whether or not somebody put your votive in the exact spot that you wanted it to be in,
Mhm.
because that is the stuff that you shouldn't sweat that day. But
And I'm grateful that I've got Denise and my mother who are very much that way.
yep, and they're going to worry about all of that for you, which is good. And I think, it's funny. I came in a little bit early today because I have a bride who's in a space that used to be a restaurant. And not all, I mean, you either love it or you hate it. It's very distinct in its decor, and the layout is the layout, and it's multiple levels, and so it's interesting. I'm kind of surprised actually that she likes it. And but she is absolutely fixated on a picture in that room. There's three of them on a wall, and she does not like them, and so she's DIYing something to put over them. And I actually asked somebody to go up and measure it for me a couple of weeks ago, and then yesterday she said, is that the outside of the frame or the inside of the frame? And I said, I don't know, but let me find out. And it was the outside of the frame, and she needs the inside of the frame. So it's that kind of thing that you just have to be prepared for. And the older I've gotten, the less patient I am for it, just to be perfectly honest. But it's a great place to start. And it's really, there are so many, and I still get teared up when, even though I don't know them very well, I still get teared up when they walk down the aisle, and for that I'm grateful because I don't ever want to get to the point where I'm just so jaded I should quit and go home and retire. So um but you will, I guess, learn, and based on what the family is doing, I say collectively the family, it sounds more like the catering social events will be the specialty, and that's good. Just know that that is a very specific side of the business, and it's a very emotional, but it's also good for people that have attention to detail because your brides will love you as a result, that they'll know that you pay attention, and that they'll be able to sense that right away. If you're genuine about it, they'll know that you're going to do everything you can to ensure that exactly where they did want that votive is where it ends up.
Mhm.
And because collectively, if people don't listen, and they're not really paying attention and they don't care, and then 4 or 5 or 6 of those things that you really wanted because you really wanted don't happen, then that does kind of put a mar on on an event. So
Right.
but yeah, I'll get too far off track if you don't keep me on
No,
your.
this is perfect. We don't even have to look at those. We can just chat away. And I had a question kind of pop into my mind. You said that you kind of worked your way from one side and there's two sides.
Yeah,
Uh, as
so
you,
initially we it seems like we always in the hotel business put newer people into sales. And back when you're Denise and I did it, you sold and you kind of planned, I guess. And typically people, the industry has kind of changed since then. And but it depends on who you work for and what their philosophy is. But I think it makes sense that you're usually better at one than you are the other. And if your job is both, you're going to favor whichever, like your right or your left hand, you're going to favor whichever one you're better at.
Mhm.
And so like there's, two girls in my office that sell, and they love the thrill of the hunt, getting somebody to sign the contract and then going, here you go, oh, I don't want to deal with it anymore, is them. And when you have to do both, it was good for me, because now, later on as the director for so many years, if I hadn't have had that piece, I really couldn't relate to it at all. So, I'm grateful for it, but I knew pretty early on I didn't dig the sales part. I'm not, and I really don't think my girls are either that I have now, not sales as in, the hubcap's going to fall off when you drive the car away, but I'm just not the personality of I want to spend your money, so I'm going to keep telling you all these things that you could do unless you're leading me that direction. If you want, you know what I mean, like that kind of thing. So I'm not driven by that. I'm driven more of by, did it come out right, and did I make all of those things that you wanted happen, and now you've got your dream memory. I'm driven by that, and
Yeah.
so that's one side of the business actually, but it has two parts. And you really will have to do some soul searching to see what you like, or maybe right away already. But if you're going to do something with the family, you're probably going to need to divvy up to some extent who's good at what,
Yeah.
even though when you do a family owned, run thing, you all do everything.
Right.
But then there's another part of the business that's just strictly, it's called kind of group. But it would be, Kyle's, Edward Jones regional meetings.
Mhm.
We did several of them here, and that's the corporate side of things. And that's where the money is getting spent by, by a company. And depending on who you do a wedding for, I mean, you may have $100,000 wedding or $200,000 wedding. They don't fall in your lap that often, but last night I had a dinner for 250 people that was $216 a plate Kobe beef.
Wow.
And yeah, I thought that was weird in COVID, because our business is about a quarter of what it has been.
Right.
And here I sent, that's the most expensive menu I think I've ever sold in my whole entire career. I thought that was odd, but it's a mortgage company, and mortgage companies are doing well right now, so there you go. you know
Yeah.
and back when Denise and I were growing up in this, decor was a really big thing. And that was fun for corporate, because, weddings give you that sense of satisfaction of just the colors and the flowers and all the things that come together, to make those little special touches. And though you're not really the one creating them, because if I mean, especially since Pinterest is, people, find so many things on Pinterest nowadays. Um, we would get our creativity from being able to do these big theme parties and have all these props. And again, we weren't creating it, but we were also, heavily involved in the discussion of, and the brainstorming of. And we were lucky enough to work at a property that had a gentleman that built props from scratch. So we had some real fun with, Batman singing through a tent, and just that kind of thing. So those days have slowed down quite a bit, even when the economy is strong. Corporations kind of look twice at really the gigantic theme parties, but there's just a couple sides to the business. And you'll find, if you do go into a hotel, you will start wherever they let you, and you'll deal with it, but you'll quickly find which direction you want to go, or what's suited to you. And it depends. I mean, you go to a big property in Salt Lake, like what's the Grand America or something, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. And you're going to have that. I would think, just based on what I've seen online, I haven't actually been there, but our chef came from there, that you would have high end weddings, quite likely, and or at least receptions, if they got married at the temple and then have their reception there. And you would have some corporate groups that were looking to be off a little bit off the beaten path, but still get a decent airlift to Salt Lake, So and be prepared to spend, a higher buck. So it's going to depend on where you go too, as to what that actually looks like and what you're dealing with.
Yeah. Well, and one of my questions was, looking at internships, would you recommend interning at, say, somewhere that you've looked at and loved, or just kind of go somewhere where you think you can really get knowledge and experience and then transfer? Or like, because I mean, you started at the Wigwam, but then ended up at the Arizona Grand Resort. Um, would do you think it would have been uh, easier or more beneficial if you had started, say, at the resort, working
Right.
like those jobs that you could get and working your way up? Or do you think working at somewhere else where you learned different things from different people at a different
Yeah,
company?
I think that, now I can stand back in my 50s and say that I am grateful for all the pieces and how they fell into place. And I don't know, had I not, started at the Wigwam, who knows whether I would have had, the gentleman I ended up marrying, to say, hey, I like that you pay attention to things and give me an opportunity. It's hard to say whether you'd have gotten that, but if you, it theoretically, I guess I'll say that I wasn't looking for an internship. So harder for me to answer that question, but I know what you're saying because we get approached them a lot,
Mhm.
because I wasn't heading for that. I wasn't looking for that. I wasn't trying to get my degree in that. I was just trying to get my degree in management.
Right.
And I actually didn't finish, because I did, but I didn't at first. I ended up getting sucked in and making great money and thought, well, whatever, it's not required. I'm not going to finish until 2006, where I'm like, I just don't want to ever feel like I didn't finish what I started. And
Mhm.
then I went back and got my Bachelor of Science in Business Management. And I actually really enjoyed the 2 years because there was a lot of like real life practical application to the marketing and things like that. So I don't recommend doing that, but it ended up working out okay for me. But here again, I've gotten to where I got and nobody ever asked if I had a degree or I didn't have a degree. So with regard to an internship, I know that at the Wigwam and here, we don't do them. And I don't really know why. I get approached a lot,
Yeah.
but I can speak for why I don't do it here. I don't have the time. And it's not beneficial to me. So it will be interesting to see. It's beneficial with all due respect. It's beneficial to the person learning,
Mhm.
but I don't have time to pour all of that into somebody,
Mhm.
and what you're going to give me back isn't enough in return
Right.
to, right? So, and I know that sounds terrible, and I'm hoping that's not your experience. You know what I mean? I'm hoping you don't run into a bunch of people like me that are going to say that. Um, you
And
know,
complete sense that you want to put in, and someone, it just, the return needs to be equal if you're going to spend that much time working.
well, and that's where I'm going to say that if this is it, this is it, and you're going for this,
Mhm.
then the best job to get is an admin in a catering department. And that's your intern. Don't do it for free. Don't feel like you have to do something for free. You don't need to, and you're not going to get. I'm telling you, there's more of me out there that aren't going to have the time to pour that into someone and not know whether they're going to have them. And why, if I'm going to hire you at the end of it, but I made you work for free, well, what, that didn't do you any good either. So I'd rather hire you, and I do all the time hire assistants, but it only pays $15 an hour. I don't know what it pays there, but and so you have to be able to live on that. And long can you live on that? And especially when you come right out of college and you're like, I really need to pay back my student loans. I really wanted 40 or 50 grand. Well, hotels suck for that because though they might not require a degree, they require you to put your work in. And somewhere you have to do it.
Mhm.
And if you decide to go to the front desk or you decide to go to housekeeping, it will take longer to get to where you want.
Mhm.
Now, if you want to be a general manager, go do all of that stuff, go be a banquet server and that kind of thing. But if you get an admin job, sales would be less desirable, but it could work. It's just that it'll send you on the sales path and it won't send you down the catering path. And I have moved sales admins down, and the benefit to me is that they've learned a lot of the systems. I still have to teach them all the other parts that go with catering, but it's still worth it to me. It just takes you longer. So if you're going to walk out and, get a job and go, then get paid and learn it while you go, because most places the assistant's going to be pretty heavily involved in the event world, whether you're going out to help a wedding. I actually can't execute a wedding by myself here because of the size of the property.
Right.
Because I've got a bridal party in a villa that's, too far to walk to any ceremony spot pretty much on property. And so like one of the sales gals is coming in tomorrow, and it's ridiculous because she's out in, 25 miles away like I am from here. And she's driving in for an hour so that I can stay with the boys at the ceremony, and she can make sure the girls get over and are hidden, and, because I can't logistically do it by myself.
Right.
And so, but that's where, if it wasn't COVID and I had an admin, that's exactly one of the things I would have an admin coming in to do, because it's good for them too. And then if you get them out and you show them, we have a lunch buffet today for Italian, it's 200 people. Come look at all the food with me, so that when you're looking at the menu in print, you know what this actually looks like. And then you just automatically learn. I mean, here you're typing event orders like the event managers are for golf or for the in-house meetings. And so by the time you get promoted, you know it. And I know that you have the confidence to talk to a client, because that also goes with it. You might be really organized, you might be really detailed, but then you shut down in front of a client.
Yeah.
And you would learn that about yourself, as you go. Now, I'm not saying you would, I'm saying you collectively, but I try to interview for that to begin with, because I know that 90% of the time, my admin isn't going to sit in that admin position for more than a year. Because as soon as I have an event manager position open, one way or the other, catering, sales, wedding, coordination, or event management, that's my feeding ground, to the next promotion. And I would interview that way. I would interview, if you're going to look at hotels, or if you're going to look at a catering site, like, in Phoenix, there's a ton of them, and they're not attached to a hotel. They just have the venue, right? You want to interview for the future. I'll take what I need to learn, but this is my ultimate goal. Can you help me get there? Because that's a fair question.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm usually the one asking it, but I also know when I'm looking at resumes that that's ultimately why they're looking, because otherwise they wouldn't bother. I mean, you can almost make the same money at Target nowadays as you can in an ad, and so, and I don't have any discounts on Target stuff, so, I mean, if I was really like $15 an hour, I might go work at Target if I didn't care, so I think I don't know, I would go that route. Maybe internships are more plentiful there, but why not get paid? Why shouldn't you get paid,
Total sense. Like, that's just kind of how I had thought about it before as well. That, I mean, never have I heard of someone just walking in and being like, I have no experience, here's this, and getting that position. And so,
well, and so I can tell you right now that if I'm got, oh God help me when I have to interview something, but I have a position open because I got like 400 resumes, and because if I'm looking for an event manager, everybody that was an admin somewhere wants that, right? And I might do it, but I might not, because I don't know them. So, I would rather take, and so when I'm hiring my assistants, I'm looking for that. And I wouldn't look for somebody that said, I've been doing this. Like, what's the point of jumping from one hotel to the next, probably in the same position? It's pretty unlikely. Right. I'm looking to give you the next step. And so, and I purposely, like, when we're fully, operating, I've got 3 admins, and at any given time, I will only have one that doesn't want to be promoted. The other 2 have to be promotable because it's my feeding ground.
Right.
There's too much at stake for me to take somebody off the street. I don't have time to train them to learn the whole job from the bottom up, because there's too much at risk that if you don't succeed, you're going to piss off clients down as we go.
Right.
And then I can't fix that, And so, I think my point I'm trying to get to is that I would look at somebody's resume like yours that says, I'm going to school for this. here's what I've done. I volunteer here, or I do this, or my mother owns a catering company, or whatever. And that would be in the pile that I would say, okay, I definitely want to talk to this person, um, because here again, if the last 10 jobs have been at a law firm and now I know you're out of work, well, then you're probably going to fall into the category of not somebody that wants to, right? I
It's not
think,
like something that they want to do, therefore they won't put in as much effort and give you as much because they don't
and
love it.
again, the one admin I have right now, she doesn't want to be, that she's quite content where she's at, and that's cool. And for me, having at least one that's that where I'm not like constantly turning, because honestly, the other thing that happens is that sorry, with all due respect, they're your age, they're getting married, and next year they're pregnant, and then they don't come back. So there's that too. And so and I get it. I mean, this is a tough job for kids.
Mhm.
And the world has most of the time I've spent in it, the department is that your kids are grown, or you don't have them and you're not planning on having them anytime soon, because I mean, that's why my husband doesn't do the hotel thing anymore, because we chose to adopt children. And he is a realtor, so that he's got the flexibility, because who's going to be home when I'm here tonight, and then tomorrow when I've got to come in again, and I can't really take another day off during the week, because that kind of thing. So you give up, especially with weddings. Friday night's rehearsal and Saturday is the ceremony, and if you're doing your job well, you sold another one for Saturday night into Sunday, and that kind of thing, and maybe Thursday, and so a lot of nights, that's when people want to meet. That's when they want to have their appointments. That's when they want to taste their cake, because they're probably maybe not going to take time off to come do that. So you just have to weigh that all too.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's something that I've thought about,
Uh-huh.
but not necessarily processed.
Yeah.
Because exactly what you're saying. Every time we've met with someone, it's been in the evening, and yeah,
Yeah.
so that's definitely something to think about and to
Well, and it's hard to have a spouse too. Now, Tyler might have had, growing up with mom that did all kinds of things, and did things for church, and did things for friends, and and so, but she also didn't have to go, because once she had Lincoln, she didn't come back, right? So she never had to juggle that, and that's good, because Kyle made sure she didn't have to, and Tyler will probably want to do the same thing for you. But it is difficult, especially when you don't have a spouse in the industry, because then they really, it can be a test for a relationship. And it was hard on my first marriage, to be honest with you, because he worked in grocery, and interestingly, he had like a late night job himself, but but then he would sleep in, but then I would have to get up and go to work, and so the weird hours and the long hours sometimes can be challenging too. So whenever I'm talking to somebody who's getting ready to start this, I just say, are you sure? Do you realize that this is not your typical
9 to 5 job?
No, hardly ever,
Well, and I've seen in my family that when we have events, it's you start working a year ahead, because we do a big craft show every fall, and my mom is working in April to contact vendors and to contact things like that. And so with events, I mean, you got to start planning way before,
Yeah.
like the week before. Hey, we need tablecloths. Oh, sorry, we don't have any. Yeah, it takes a lot of organization, a lot more time that I think a lot of people realize.
Yes, it does. And being organized is very helpful. If you saw my office right now, you'd be like, well, what are you talking about? Because I'm the everything on my desk and everything on my floor kind of girl. And that's the way I've always been.
Organized.
I like it where I can see it.
Yeah.
But that's not what I'm talking about. Although my boss is like, oh my God, for heaven's sake, clean up your, I'm like, I know, I like it this way. And so, but I know where everything is. And, obviously with this many years in the industry, I'm the one that everybody comes to with, what was the size of that, pillar in that room, and so being organized has a couple of facets to it. It may not be an empty desk, but it has the fact that you've got to, at any given time, you've probably got 20 or 30 events in your head that are active, and you have to have a mind for it. It's all well and good to use, and I definitely put appointments in my phone. Don't get me wrong. I've got several methods of ways to keep track, but the most effective one is the one like, okay, I got to remember that I got to stop and buy rose petals on my way in tomorrow because we do turn downs of like rose petals and, and chocolate strawberries for the couple when they come back to their room. And I don't have that in my calendar yet. I just know that on the way in tomorrow, I've got to stop and pick that up. And oh, I want to get a wedding card and I need to grab that still. I keep a stash. Those are the little teeny things, the nice little touches that make it special, but that isn't even relevant to the fact that I've, all the other things that have to go with it. And I'm still dealing with the 3 events next week, and who has their diagram and who still owes money, and and so you have to really thrive on that kind of thing. And if you're an anal, everything has to be in its place kind of person, this is a harder job for that, surprisingly, because people are going to throw wacky stuff at you all the time. And it's going to test your I want it to be like this kind of, mentality if you are. So it's just, I don't think people really realize, not you, because I think you've had enough exposure to it to kind of know what you're getting into, but it just isn't. I think a lot of people have this misconception. It's just fun. It's so fun. And it is fun. Like, I really dig the dumbest thing. Like, I can't wait to see the wedding cake when the pastry chef makes it. And I'll go back and she'll like, come see the cake. And I'm like, oh no, I can't wait to see the cake. Because, now with Pinterest, everybody has their picture of what the perfect cake is. And then she'll do it. And I'm like, how did you just take that picture and do that? I mean, I could never do that. And like, I'm so excited when it gets on the table and then we can put the candles out and, I don't know, dumb things, right? But
Just the little things that bring you joy and give you that satisfaction of I helped create this. I helped make this possible.
Yeah.
I created the scene that makes this cake stand out. I mean, it's incredible.
And so it's fun, and it's also, it feeds into my need to carry things out, I guess, follow through. Like, I just have an extreme need to do what I said I was going to do. And so that feeds into that personality side of me. It's not ego. It's not, for me, it's not ego, because you rarely get thanked, actually, just so you know. I mean, it's not that I'm expecting the thanks or I need the thanks, because it's more of just that I did it. I got it done. It's an internal thing.
Right.
And that I checked off those 50 things on my to-do list and didn't drop dead. I mean, it's just an internal dumb, and we're all like that. All of us are like that. It's a wacky side of the personality, I guess.
It makes me so happy you're explaining all the things that I'm like, yeah,
Mhm.
that's exactly kind of how I feel when I do things. I'm so grateful that there is a place where kind of we all fit.
Mhm.
So, sorry, we have an alarm. But I just wanted to thank you for taking the time out of your day to kind of
Yeah.
help explain some things and to kind of teach me more about how the industry is and kind of what your role is and what you do. And I'm very, very grateful. Thank you so much.
Of course, I want to touch one more point on the intern program. I've just not worked at a property that had a good system for it. And I know that there's some, like, the Marriotts of the world or the Hiltons of the world. I think there are places where that is. And you may find that as you go through college, there's, it's a requirement. Like, if you're in a hospitality program, I'm thinking there's an intern, component to it. And that's where I think that your professors will help you, get into that. And I don't mean to say don't do it. Of course you'll have to do it, but that aside, and whatever you have to do to satisfy those classes and, and getting your degree and that kind of thing, as you wind it down and you're ready to get out and actually work, don't feel like you have to waste your time getting not paid. Go after something and say, knowing that this is the perfect spot. So I just need to find somewhere where I can be in that perfect spot. And it doesn't even matter, like, are you going to get hired at Grand, whatever? I always want to say Grand America, but I'm not even sure that's the name of it. We have a Little America here that's like a little junky place, and I always think of that. And I know it's not the same. It doesn't really matter, except that you don't necessarily want, if you're serious about this, don't pick a limited service property that has one 500 square foot meeting room, because then you're not going to get exposed to what you want to get exposed to. You've got to at least find something that does the weddings, does the corporate stuff, even if it's, I mean, Denise and I worked at a property, it was 340 rooms. We coincidentally had a ton of space, so we ended up doing a lot of events, and I think that's what prepared me for this property, because I can't imagine, I don't even know how I would have started my career here. And so I just don't think I could have done it. I don't think I would have been able to wrap my head around it. And it was, even still after 15 years of the wigwam, a culture shock to come here and have 200,000 square feet of space between inside and outside, and just crazy. We had a tent that we had to move every 6 months. We don't do it anymore, but just the weirdest things that I'm like, and I'm responsible for that? What do you mean? So yeah, I mean, start looking now, start researching now. Obviously you can't go to class unless you're taking nights or online and necessarily work a 9 to 5. But if there's any flexibility with any of that, look at it. The sooner you can get going, the quicker it's going to gel.
Better off. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course. Congrats, have a great wedding.
I sure hope so. I've got an amazing event planner, wedding planner on my team, so.
Yeah, that's perfect. Well, if you are going along through the journey and you just need some advice, feel free to email or text.
Thank you so much. You have a great evening, and good luck with all of your future events.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.